Hello and welcome to Catholic Truths. Today we'll be discussing excommunication. What is excommunication? Well, it literally means out of communion. It is the removal of someone from being in communion with the church. Now, of course, this is a very controversial topic, especially in modern day non-denominational churches. And we will discuss Protestant views on this at the end of our video. So, our first question, is excommunication biblical? Well, our primary source for this is Matthew 18:15 through 17. It says, "If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault, just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church, and they will refuse to listen. If they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector," because we know either of those is part of our regular community, especially those tax collectors. So that's the basic view of where excommunication comes from. There are other biblical sources. You can just Google that. You can find a whole bunch of sources for that. So what does Catholicism teach about excommunication? Well, we teach that excommunication is a medicinal spiritual penalty that deprives the guilty Christian of all participation in the common blessing of ecclesiastical society. That's a bit of a tongue twister there. It is the most serious penalty the church can inflict. It is the result of extremely grave sin. It is medicinal rather than vindictive, as it is not intended so much to punish someone, but rather to correct them and bring them back to righteousness. One thing I need to point out is excommunication does not rescind baptism. Baptism is a sacrament that you have already received as a gift from God. You can't have that taken away from you except by God himself, which, from everything I know, that doesn't actually happen. So who can excommunicate? Who can send out those orders? Well, first of all, the Pope can. He can pretty much excommunicate anyone he deems worthy of it in the church. Of course, this has led way to abuse, and it has been abused in the past. We've had our political popes that use it as a political tool, and then we have popes that have just done it as a personal endeavor upon themselves. That's not the actual way excommunication is supposed to work, but as we've discussed in the history of the church and in the Pope section video that I made, popes aren't perfect. A general council of the entire church can also excommunicate someone. We've discussed councils in the past, like the councils of Carthage, the councils of Nicaea, those kind of councils. They can excommunicate people as well. Now, a provincial council can also excommunicate someone. So, like, say, if you got all of North America and counted it as a province, if all the bishops and cardinals got together and held a council, if they deemed someone worthy within the province to excommunicate, they could do so. But they couldn't excommunicate someone from South America, for example. A bishop can excommunicate someone, but only within his own diocese. He can't, say, go from being in Kentucky and excommunicate someone in Virginia, for example. Priests cannot excommunicate anyone. If you have an issue, you bring it to them, then you bring it to the priest, and then the priest, he'll decide if it's warranted to take it to the bishop or not, and then the bishop will deal with it. There is also one other person that can excommunicate someone, and that is yourself. You can excommunicate yourself from the church by committing a seriously grave sin in secret. And the example I use of this is confirmation. When you're confirmed into the church, the Catholic Church, one thing they ask you is if you agree to all the teachings of the Catholic Church. And, if you agree, then yeah, you say yes, and you agree, and you're confirmed. However, I know way too many Catholics that support homosexual marriage. Now, this is a topic for a whole other video, but it's just to point out this. But that is a teaching that is not Catholic teaching. It goes against the church. I also know people that are Catholic, but they're very pro-abortion, and that, again, is against Catholic teaching. So if you say, oh, I agree with everything, but, or except, then you don't agree with everything, and therefore, not only is it an invalid confirmation, you're also excommunicating yourself from by your heart, or with your heart, taking yourself away from the community as a whole, and on a spiritual level. So, this has been a very brief general overview of the Catholic view of excommunication. So the question arises, what about Protestant denominations? How do they view excommunication? Well, we've got a ton of different Protestant denominations, of course, so they're all going to vary on it, but it breaks it down into three main groups. You have your first group, which they don't teach it at all. They don't believe in it. They just kind of skirt over these issues. These are your feel-good churches. They feel everyone is welcome, no matter who they are. These are where your mega churches come in. Of course, they don't want to excommunicate someone because mega churches are dependent on money, and so if they're getting, sending people away, they're losing money. So they don't want to teach that, and that's one of the big problems with mega churches. But then you get your, other non-mega churches or just other non-just feel-good churches, and they will typically look at Matthew 18 and they'll follow it to the word. So they'll either do this very formally, so there's a formal manner in which they do this, or they do it very informally, in which, you get your person going, I think you're a sinner, and they say, no, I'm not. And they go, oh, Hank, hang on, Hank, come here. I think he's a sinner. Do you? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not. And they go, all right, everyone, hey, y'all think he's a sinner? Oh, yeah. What? Okay, you're gone. That kind of thing. That's actually, humorously enough, the kind of excommunication I witnessed as a child. Well, I can't say directly witnessed, but I was somehow involved and around it because of certain issues within my home church growing up. And that was within the Church of Christ. But as I said, different denominations will do it differently, and even within the denomination, different churches may handle it differently as well. So if you are Protestant and you're curious about how your own church does excommunication, then just I advise you to go ask your elders or deacons, whatever you have, your priest, pastor, reverend, preacher, whatever it is. Ask them, and they should be able to tell you on that. That's all on excommunication. Next week, we'll be discussing an introduction to the sacraments, because we're going to start a video series on the sacraments as part of this overall series. And while I can cover all the sacraments in one video, I'd also like to spend a little bit more time on each sacrament individually. So there should be 8 videos in this entire series. I may have to wing it a little bit and knock 2 of them together, but we'll just see as that comes. Thank you for watching. Please click that subscribe button below. Follow me on Twitter at Catholic_truths. You'll see that down below. Be sure to visit our Amino Catholics. If you download the app, just type in Catholics and boof, we're right there. We welcome everybody. We just ask you follow our guidelines. We don't want our trolls and the people that come in just to cause problems. All links are labeled in the description below. All of our any resource I used and anything that I've just mentioned. Thank you for watching, and God bless. Note to self: remember to make sure there's enough space on my phone before I make another video.